Peace. Did you know that at one point in time in history, if you were tough, an outlaw, like that, about that life, a gangster, the set you claim would most likely be in the burbs. Yes, the suburbs. In a prime example of how connotation can influence semantics or the meaning of a word, to double back and expand the definition of a word, despite its denotation and etymology remaining the same. At one point, the suburbs were gangsta's paradise.
Malibu. It's hardcore up in the booth, y'all.
And you may be thinking I have it backward, that maybe I'm talking about the urban areas. Well, let's backtrack to the root words and see about that. That's where etymology comes in. The word urban comes from the Latin word urbs, meaning city. And suburbs comes from the Latin word suburbium, meaning below the city or area outside of the city. At the time, being in the city was the good life. You were resourced and had markets, infrastructure, all sorts of provisions that made the comforts of life more accessible. But being outside of city limits or below the city, suburban, you had fewer resources. It was more lawless. So how did we arrive to now, where suburban and urban seem to have swapped connotations without their denotations changing? Well, that's a familiar story. As suburbanites, or people outside of the city, started to make their way into the city, seeking a better life and opportunity, the resources in the cities were spread thinner, and the gap between the haves and the have-nots got wider. Mind you, there was crime in the city beforehand, albeit more so in the suburbs. But when the crime was mostly in the suburbs, the crime wasn't racialized, because the concept of race as we know it had yet to be contrived. So suburban crime was more underprivileged on underprivileged crime, or under-resourced on under-resourced crime, poverty on poverty crime, not white on white crime. Unlike the characterization of crime in the city once the advent of race took root, despite the fact that crime occurs primarily intraracially among all races of people. In the modern era, those outside of the cities who sought a better life in the cities were largely immigrants. And yes, black people, which sparks an exodus from the cities to outside of the cities, or from the urban areas to the suburban areas. And that exodus was whiter. So how did the social perception of urban and suburban switch? Racism, silly goose. Of course it's gonna be racism. Come on, you knew that. But I digress. So goes the story of how the suburbs were once gangsta paradise. I am Son Michaud, a sociolinguist. This is my passion. If y'all want more sociolinguistics content and want to know more about how denotation, definition, connotation, and semantics, aka meaning, work with words, stitch this or comment below, give me some mo. And I got you. We out here.